When it comes to smartwatches, there are two different approaches usually on offer. On the one hand, you have the proper smartwatches designed for lots of interactivity, replying to notifications, making payments, installing apps and listening to music. Think of the Pixel Watch or the Galaxy Watch or Apple Watch, and you get the picture. And while they're great, they do all have one weakness: battery life. Even the latest Apple Watch Series 9 will only go a day between charges. So would you be better off getting the latest Huawei watch instead? I'm Cam Bunton from Pocket-lint, and I've been using the latest Watch GT4 for the past couple of weeks, and I think for some people, especially considering the price point, this makes far more sense than an Apple Watch. So one thing Huawei gets consistently right, or at least more right than a lot of other tech companies, is design. In fact, look at the smartwatch market at this price point and you'll struggle to find anything as authentic looking as a Watch GT4. I love the matte anodized finish to the 46mm model, and there's a reassuring sturdiness to the metal casing. It doesn't feel hollow or weak. Plus, the numbered index around the bezel adds that feel of authenticity to what is clearly trying to be a sporty chronograph style watch. The model I've been testing shipped with a metal link bracelet, and if you like sporty metal link bands, you'll love this one too. It creates a seamless looking curved round shape when on the arm and joins perfectly with the case. Now personally, I don't like metal bands, they catch the arm hairs, and so I quickly switched it out for the black rubber band I got sent with it as well. Now given I was going to be wearing it during a heat wave and while exercising, it was a far more comfortable, practical and lightweight option. There are going to be others though. Huawei is launching a number of different materials and colours this year, but if you don't like any of them, it's easy enough to switch them out for a universal third-party strap of your choice. As well as all of that, you get the usual standards of water and dust resistance. It's 5 atmosphere rated, so you should be able to take it swimming, and it's got an IP68 rating too. So in other words, unless you're going deep sea diving, it should survive just about anything. Now in the past, I've criticised Huawei's approach to watch faces. On the one hand, fine, there are a few platforms out there that have as many watch faces available to download. There are thousands of them, some paid, some free. But where Huawei has lacked is in the customization of those preloaded watch faces. A lot of them had very little in the way of options to customize, usually meaning you could only change the information that appeared in the complications and not a lot else. With the Watch GT4, Huawei is improving on that front. A few of the new watch faces will now let you change the index styles, the accent colors and the scale. The selection of watch faces that let you do this at the time I made the video was still pretty limited, but it's progress in the right direction. And the display itself is a big, bright and punchy AMOLED-based panel. That high contrast display means it's really easy to read in pretty much any condition, even in bright daylight, and the colours and details shine through clearly. And the size of the panel means that when tracking an activity, there's lots of space for data that's easy to read, at least on the 46mm model. Now you do of course get an always on display mode as well, and some watch faces have their own dedicated always on views, so that you can always see the time. Having this enabled does eat more of the available battery, so if you go with a smaller model with the smaller battery, you might want to consider not having this switched on. As a smartwatch platform, Huawei does the basics, but not a lot else. It's a platform built on Harmony OS 4, and that means regardless of whether you use an Android or an iPhone, you can have smartphone notifications appear on your wrists, and you get calendar events, weather and other such basic information. There are smart preset replies available for messages, but no typing or voice responses like you get on Apple Watch or Wear OS. There are other things missing too, including contactless payments and support for third-party offline music listening. Here, Garmin has the advantage. It's got Garmin Pay and support for Spotify, Amazon Music and Deezer, so you get both of those features if you switch to a Garmin watch instead. Otherwise, the interface is simple and easy to use. You can access your full app grid by pressing the rotating crown once, and zoom in and out of it by scrolling that same button. Or as usual, you can swipe through your favourite widgets or cards which show your chosen highlights, and information like weather, fitness status for the day and last night's sleep, among other things. You can have these arranged and set how you want, but they're full screen widgets that can show you things like last night's sleep, your activity progress for the day, your calorie deficit, if you're tracking that, a compass, and a few different multi-data dashboards that can show you multiple snippets of information. Now there's a new multitasking view this year as well, which is activated by double pressing the crown. This shows a carousel of all the recent apps you've used, so you can quickly switch between them from your watch face to your workout, to your music or calendar, or whatever else you've used recently. Now moving on, and with any fitness device, the important thing is to have a consistent and reliable tracker that gives you the information you need and presents it in a way that makes sense. And in a lot of ways, Huawei gets this right. I've tested this watch in a number of ways over the period of wearing it for this review. Thanks to some aging knees, running sadly wasn't one of them, but it has been on a long 25-kilometer walk, plus a few high-intensity kettlebell workouts and a few lower-intensity yoga sessions to mix it up as much as I could. Now, there are several things I was impressed with, but the most important was that the heart rate sensor seems responsive, consistent, and reliable throughout, even during kettlebell sessions, which, for so many reasons in the past and a little recently with the Galaxy Watch 6, has been a struggle to get accurate information from. Oftentimes with other devices, particularly older ones, I found that movement, the sweat, the speed at which heart rate accelerates during these high-intensity sessions leads to a confused sensor. In these instances, it can sometimes take between 5 and 10 minutes to catch up and show accurate heart rates, rendering the tracking almost useless because it would then mean perceived efforts and calorie counts were way off, and it's also crucial for predicting recovery time. With the Huawei Watch GT4, that wasn't really an issue. I've worn it alongside the Garmin Venue 3 and the Galaxy Watch 6 Classic at different points and found it responsive, delivering quick heart rate changes on screen clearly. It was still a few beats per minute away from what the Garmin showed, but it was consistent and usable information. GPS data was good too, at least in that it was consistent with itself. I did find, compared to most other watches I've tested along parts of the same routes, that it overestimates distances. Now, for instance, a portion of my long walk was a route that I've done many times, and regardless of which device I've used in the past, it's always come out at just over 5 kilometers, in fact, usually just under 5.2. Huawei's latest watch measured around 200 meters further, and that overestimation continued along the route. The interesting thing I noticed was that when that session then imported and synced with Strava, which it can do now, the distances were calculated lower, and much closer to what I'd expect those distances to be. So perhaps the data it collects is accurate, but the way Huawei translates it in the app is a little off. Now, other improvements that could be made is more of a focus on physical condition and recovery and readiness. It's an area we've seen the likes of Garmin and Fitbit work on a lot in recent models. Huawei does tell you how long you need to recover after each individual workout and then shows the workout log for that specific workout, but no dedicated recovery view and no focus on your recovery or how much juice you've got left, based on other metrics throughout the day. Otherwise, I like Huawei Health as a platform. It serves up lots of useful data about activities, and any GPS activity like walking, cycling, running comes with an interactive map with the route plotted on it and a really nice animation. You'll get the breakdown of the pace, the effort, the distance, and all the other details you need. It's also really easy to use and doesn't hide performance behind really complicated menus. If you're a runner or just want to get into running, the dedicated running and coaching plan segment is a great tool to get yourself fit too, and train up to a particular level, whether that's as a beginner or wanting to do your first 5k, 10k or half marathon. Now we get on to one of the biggest reasons to choose this over something like the Apple Watch or the Galaxy Watch 6. And that of course is battery life. And with the larger model with the always on display switched off, you can get up to 14 days quite comfortably. That's with typical usage and notifications enabled. If, for instance, like me, you turn most of your notifications off, you'll find you might go longer than 2 weeks on a full charge. Now, the thing that impressed me most about the battery life was its endurance while tracking the long walk I mentioned earlier in this piece. I started that walk with roughly 70% of the battery on the watch, and finished the walk with 5 hours of tracking and more than half of the battery still remaining, so only about 20% drop, give or take, despite having it out and on my wrist for the entire afternoon. So even if you want to take this watch on an all-day hike, tracking your GPS, your heart rate and everything else while you're on the move, you don't have to worry, because the battery won't die. So regardless of how active you are with it, it's not a watch that you're going to have to charge every couple of days. Now, at the beginning I said that for some people this makes more sense than an Apple Watch, and I meant it. For some, the idea of having a watch that you need to charge every night is ridiculous. Huawei Watch will go easily 2 weeks between charges, and it also looks like a proper watch, where most other smartwatches effectively look like a mini smartphone, Apple Watch included. Add to that the detailed, in-depth fitness and health analysis, and you get a watch that works well for those who care most about tracking and health and sleep activities. You might not get the same level of interaction and notifications or third-party apps, or even contactless payments or Spotify playlists, but you do get a long-lasting and well-made device. And crucially, even at its most expensive, will only set you back about £300, and $230 at its lowest. It's similarly affordable in other markets that it's available in too, and more than worth that outlay. Let me know what you think of this watch in the comments down below. Does charging a watch every 2 weeks sound like something you would love, more than something that needs charging every day? I've been Cam, I'm at Cam Bunton on Threads. You can get hold of me on there. If you did like this video, please do subscribe, hit that thumbs up and the notification bell, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.